Hello, my name is Nick Rice, and I'm here to discuss welding and the problems that are going to arise with finding jobs here in the future. Well, the problems that are coming up are that there's two different styles of welding now. There is the old style, which is called fusion welding, and then there's the new style that's coming up called solid state welding. Before we get into any controversy and stuff like that, I'd like to talk about what they are. Let's start with the new style, solid state welding. Solid state welding is a complete automated system that welds anything pretty much. The only thing that humans do is the programming and such, and it takes about 5 years to learn programming for all the different styles of machines that are coming up. One of the leading style companies is Thompson Welding. They're a complete solid state welding company that's been around for about 10 years or so, and within the last 2 years they sold 800 models of just one style of welder, which is called a resistance welder. Speaking of resistance welders, that's a really good example of one of the solid state welders. What it is a system that uses friction to create a weld based off of rotating speeds and such. Thompson sells a system that does catalytic converters, and what it does is it'll have the catalytic converter set up on one side and a rotating pipe for the exhaust on the other, and whenever they finally touch, it'll rotate at such a speed that it creates a friction enough to heat it up and fuse the two together. And based off of those welds, they have come up with zero problems with them. There's no air pockets, no real issues. It's a perfect weld. So that's solid state welding and an example of it. Fusion welding, which is the old state, and pretty much everyone and their brother knows about it. The biggest example for that is an arc welder, and here in a moment I'll show you what it is.
This is an example of a fusion welder. This is for the subclass of arc welding and is known as a MIG welder. The equipment for it is the MIG welder, ground clamp for its connection, the lead, which lets the wire come out, it starts its connection and everything, the gas, which is what helps with the current and everything, finally the wire, which normally comes in wraps like that. The system a lot of people know of and is the most common for fusion welding. The equipment for it is pretty basic. You just have your welding gloves, which are made out of complete leather and such, and you have your helmet. This kind is a special helmet that transitions on and off. There's also older styles, which I do not have, that you just have to flip the helmet and such. And there is an arc welder.
Now that I have discussed what fusion welding and solid state welding is, I'd like to discuss the problem that is coming up with them. And that problem is jobs, and whether or not which one to choose for the future. Right now, fusion welding is still pretty big, and it is the most known and most popular style of welding for a lot of companies. But the thing is, what's going to happen in the next 15-20 years? Studies have shown that solid state welding is going to become pretty popular by that time, and maybe people are going to shift over, but it's going to take a lot of experience just to get going with that, so jobs are going to become an issue. Or if you choose solid state and it really doesn't pick up like what surveyors are thinking it's going to, then you're not going to be ready for fusion welding, and you're going to have to go back to school, spend a bunch of money, get prepared for it. Plus the experience that you'll have, you're not going to have any for fusion welding, so you're not going to be prepared. And pretty much with that knowledge, what do you do from there? That's the problem that's coming up with welding.